Welcome to August. So, a really interesting thing as I've been tuning in just after all that's been happening this month was I got a visual of a person actually sort of building it's a space capsule and putting in tools and putting in things that feel right to prepare that to make it comfortable, to bring forward things that just feel important. It's like you're going on a journey, and maybe we've been doing a lot of preparing for that in certain ways, and there's been certain practical things that have been happening, certain things that you've been revising. And then I got the image of this sort of really well built space capsule. And so you're feeling maybe good about that part of the journey. But the next part of that is the surrender of being rocketed up into space, into a whole new stratosphere, a whole new experience. And I really thought that this was interesting because when I was thinking about the astrology of just coming up just for this full moon alone at the end of this week, we're just having with the full moon in Pisces. So even regardless of eclipse season and everything that's happening all around that, and please tune into those energetic gateways if you need to. What I have found is that by being in the flow and following and trusting in my intuition, as I do, having been on this journey for a long time, I feel that for many of us, we are in a sense of flow state when we are listening to our inner guidance. And I'd like to flag and say flow state in this case doesn't really mean everything seems easy or is great, but it's about being able to trust. It's almost like coming down to that kernel of the essence of you, that as though you were a creature in nature that just internally knows, the season is shifting now and I'll start building my nest, for example. You will find that you are being moved by the energetic presence. So, by the themes of the astrology, you'll probably find that you are actually being moved by those things in your daily life, whether you read the forecast or not. And the water element has obviously been a very big thing. But what I love about Pisces, as I'm sitting into feeling into that more, is that mutable energy where it's about sort of dissolving. It's kind of like asking, how do I release control and allow myself to flow so that I can go into a deeper level and I can allow deeper things to manifest? Because I don't know about all of you, but certainly coming up in sessions that I've been having and themes that are arising, even some different things I've read of networking with other practitioners. Fear has been a big thing coming up in people. And I've been working with a few people too, where the fear is, I even heard this said the other day, it's more of an irrational fear. And yet, irrational is the key to say to you, it'll be something ancestral or karmic for you to look at. It's kind of a gift where you're distanced enough from that fear that you feel perhaps even as a jolt in your body, but where you're actually technically distanced enough that it's something from your karmic line or your past that you can feel and heal. Because when you're in a survival mode of a fear or a very challenging situation and you have to just get through it day by day, moment by moment, that's a different kind. That's also very hard. But when it's a fear that you think to yourself, why is this coming up at me? There's no logical reason for it. It's another gateway opportunity for you to see, I can do some peeling back of the layers. I can free myself from some heaviness, emotional, spiritual, can be karmic, as I say, can be aspects even of you from earlier in this life you're in, habits, identities, thoughts that have been sort of sitting around you and just, clogging up the etheric in a sense. So what I felt was there's something interesting about all of this preparation work that has been happening, some of the steps and some of just the getting things done that was happening last month and also a bit into this month. I talked about my bookcase at one point. Organization of things, which leads me back to the idea of I'm not sort of saying that old term of feathering the nest, but in terms of, I feel like there's been a preparation of bringing through things. Maybe some people and some groups have been coming closer into your orbit, and maybe some people have been moving away. And it's just that preparation to allow the next part of the journey. And that would be sort of my two big pillars that I work with, and we all work with as humans: discernment and surrender. Discernment is such a great one because that was where the preparation came in. And what I was really wanting to work with people was saying to you, remember that we are about refining gifts. It comes to a certain point on the path where you couldn't really be saying that you're changing, or even that what you're doing, the way that you offer things is a change, because that implies something very different, one thing and then a whole other thing. But in the refinement, And it's that sort of mastery on the path and mastery of your own skills. And it's that learned wisdom, so knowledge becoming wisdom. It's about getting to a certain point where you say, okay, so I'm in a cycle of I discern and I move through all of this stuff, and then I surrender and I let go. I don't actually see it as a journey that just goes one way and then ends after surrender. You might be one of those people who are associated more with the totem of butterfly, and that's certainly something that I have, where it's the cycle of life, which we've talked about in this podcast before, of a butterfly, and that the final one would be after emergence from cocoon is flight. But then the flight is not the end of that journey because we are not butterflies, we are humans. So it's about taking the medicine of that and saying, now, this next stage of my life or this next project, I might be feeling that butterfly wisdom coming in of there's the pupae and the cocoon and the waiting, and again, and about allowing that process to go again. Because I think we're always, or people are often looking for a one point, the end of the journey, or certainly a plateau. And that's really not always the way it works. There is something beautiful too about the surrender process. And this is something that I have found comforting in my journey, where I just feel that you always get to a certain point living a human life, but with your spirituality, where the humaning is not going to get you where you need to be. The most practical solution, the most organized reality is not going to be able to get you into certain places and parts of your journey. Sometimes because you're trying to force maybe someone's forcing something for the timing, whether it's a timing issue or it's even just a life issue, like just a gateway for you and your soul. And sometimes when I say I surrender, it's the idea of working with the divine. And that means your team of higher guide, your higher self. It means angels, goddesses, ascended masters, whatever these beings are, crystal beings, because they're at a different frequency than we are with our human and our soul part. They're able to transmute energy and understand things in a different way that sometimes the human mind just doesn't want to. So we have to let the human mind part just come into the background, and we say, I have to give this over to source, to spirit, whoever you want to say, whichever divine being. I give this over to you because right now I can't do any more. And even if you're not expecting an answer in the next 5 seconds, you are still giving yourself permission in the surrender to just take a breath and say, enough of this sort of pushing or mental pushing, or maybe physical task you're trying to call and get meetings set up or get something set up. Just taking a moment to breathe and not necessarily expecting a magical answer in the next second from your guides, because they will be there, but giving yourself the process of saying, I don't need to be in control. So I saw this water element. Interestingly, earlier this week, I actually went out for the day with a friend and we wanted to go on a walk, and we found a new walk that just happened to be unexpected and right along the path of a creek. The entire walk was following this creek, and that's kind of unusual in my area to have that much water. So water element has been finding me. And I've been working too with the depths of the water. I've been feeling into that energy of grief, because, as we know, we feel the collective energy. So for many of you on your path as a spiritual being in your human existence, I'm sure that you are feeling collective energy. And I'm sure that some of you are wanting to put towards your prayers and your intentions, whether you're professional at this or not. You're still a being of light, you're a light worker, putting it towards helping to heal that overall grief that exists on earth with all of the stuff over all of the centuries. And grief is that energy of almost the water element, the depths of what is there that cannot be healed until it has been witnessed in some way. So the water element has that, but it also has that ability of transformation. And it also has this sort of dissolution and this ability to help us to go with the flow. So I would just sort of check in with you, and it's a teaching method I had been bringing through with people, and something I love to use for me, the idea of your life as a stream. And periodically feeling into this. Where are you at in the stream? Is it a really wide river? Is it a narrow stream? Is it shallow? Is it deep? Just getting a sense of where you're at in the flow, where you're at emotionally, and in terms of action and things that are happening in your life. As I say, if there's project on the boil, using lots of water references here, but always sort of getting a sense of feeling in. You could also call it your flow, your own divine timing. Where are you at? And honoring where you're at. So not instantly looking for a way to change where you're at. Sometimes they would even say that, when I say they, I'm in spirit. sometimes if you're in a flow in your own river of your life, and things are really moving and everything is great, it's still a good time to sort of call in the energy of light and ask for some bubbling uh, flow and smoothing the path. Because sometimes when there's a lot of activity and things happening, it can also have a disruptive influence. So it's not as though being slow in the lane of your life is something bad or everything happening all at once is something great. Again, it's discerning your own layers. So, what would you need to do at this time if I was going back, all the way back to the beginning to the space capsule, and you knew you were preparing for this journey, and you get to a point where you've done all you can now? There's really nothing more that you can add. It's just in terms of your life and these next steps. And so you have to allow the divine to come in and to support you, because where you are going on your soul journey now, where even Earth we are going, are things that haven't happened before. And it's great to have that beautiful Aquarian vision, which we can feel. You can feel some of that beauty of what is possible, but we've still got to get there and we still have to ground it into the reality. So giving yourself the ability to say, and let's just loop in a little bit again to the irrational fears, as I said, which I found very helpful because you feel them in the body. Like it can be a very deep moment when something happens and you have like a moment, like a reaction, as though it's a survival fear, and then you realize, oh, this is this little part that just needs to be released, just healed. And as I face it, and I give myself a moment to say, gee, that feels like it's real, and I honor it in a moment. So I don't go into it for ages, but I go, I feel the feeling, whatever the depth of the feeling was, as though it's real, because being a number 11 and having the 2-1 there and having it be a master number, I can often experience things as both and neither, all and nothing at the same time. So giving myself the gift, and I was working with some people about this idea of fear, of almost taking a breath into whatever the fear is and not trying to make it go away, but being with it just for a moment. And if you can't shift it, just be present with the idea that there's a fear, but you don't need to be it. So it's not you, but it's just in your space. When that irrational kind of thing comes up and there's something that's happened maybe to trigger it, but it gives you the opportunity to just sit with it, because you do know with your logical mind it just cannot be what the internal systems are saying to you. And you don't have a reason, or you don't have a happening that really makes sense in terms of what the fear trigger was. Sometimes it's about pulling out those old timelines of times, even in this life, where something went a certain way and the reaction from your inner self was, I don't really want to feel that again. So coming at it, as I said, for a more gentle point where it's not really what's happening, it's not really about the outer situation, it's just about a little thing inside you, is a gateway, is an opportunity, and is also sort of a thing to celebrate, that you're being given a time to heal something from this distanced view of it, because it's not really happening in the way that it seems to be hurting you. Where does the discernment help us? There is where we can step back and we can say, okay, I can see one thing, I can see the reality of this fear. And I'm not saying, when I say irrational, that kind of might make you feel that you need to think how ridiculous. Don't bring that into it, because it's just irrational as a flag to say it doesn't actually make logical sense, and so we investigate a little bit further. But don't ever tell yourself that was ridiculous that I felt that. There's always a reason for the things that come up within you. Mainly it's to bring them up into the light, to heal them, and to move on. So if we move back to this idea, and obviously this moon is coming, and I had the water element, I'd been working with it emotionally in sessions, doing some of the deeper clearing waters, uh, working with that idea of how the moon is happening. And then I actually went on this walk, and unexpectedly there was water everywhere. And then I realized at the end of the week, here we go, it's this moon. It's a mutable sign. So I love that for us, especially those of us who've got lots of fixed signs in our astrologies, or certainly for anyone who's been, since the beginning of this year, maybe even really feeling a lot of pressure has been on them, and that they have been in, if not stagnant situations, just sort of having to go through the motions and apply yourself, maybe just something difficult that's happening to those around you, or just some things within you that just feel almost like a very stuck, like moving through treacle. So if that's been something that you're feeling, it's an opportunity to really sort of move into the opposite of that with a mutable energy with this Pisces moon of sort of letting the waters be something that help to dissolve. It's not about having to go into the deep depths as we have been. It's about letting this flow come through and not controlling the process maybe in the unknown. Again, when we come into the surrender is about the unknown, but sometimes it is such a balm for the soul to not have to know how it's all going to work out. Sometimes balancing and spinning all the plates and thinking that you're totally in control still has a brittle energy underneath it where one tiny thing could go wrong and the whole structure falls down and you don't feel safe or in control. So there can be a balance between the more that you're willing to just lean right out into the unknown with an intentional conversation between you and your higher self, God, the universe, of actually saying, as I said before, giving it over, saying, I don't know what more I can, how much more I can think, prepare, or worry, whichever part of the spectrum you're on there about a certain situation. I hand this over to the divine. I hand this over to you and I allow fresh energy to come in, basically. Again, if you're not going to get an answer straight away, you at least get a buffer zone for you. The thing that happens when we're on this path and the things that, you just can't make up. And usually they'll be absolutely meaningful just to you or the couple of people that it's happened with. But keep honoring those things and understanding the aha moments and see a sense of humor or sort of loving support from the universe when you realize, oh, I've been in the thick of this and look at how that water element showed up for me. Whatever it was, keep reading the signs. Especially if you're someone right now who's crafting something in your work, you're creating, you're starting a program or some artwork. I'm working with people like this, and I've been saying to them all, really make sure that you're taking some kind of note of those signs and synchronicities that are happening for you in your creation process. Because sometimes we think we'll remember and then we don't. And sometimes there's something in the creation story that's important, even if you don't share it once the product or the project is complete. Just taking the time to make a quick note somewhere for yourself, even of all of these little signs and all the drips and the spiritual breadcrumbs that come in along the way when you're in your flow state of doing something that's important for you and your soul. Again, don't misconstrue flow state with meaning everything is always in movement and perfect. But it's about one step and then waiting and then trusting and knowing when to move, when to stay. Again, I'm going to say be gentle with yourself. We really need to help our human minds to dissolve back more into higher mind and be less brittle, be less rigid, and be more mutable and more open and less judgmental of ourselves and our journey for a start, and then of others in the world too. I don't know if this has happened for you too, but I found recently there've been a couple of historical events and also certain people that I have learnt in the media, in the world, that I have learnt some more about. And I've actually made two different, like 360-degree shifts of realizing, oh, so that whole story has actually come out. I don't feel like I need to go into the details of it. I just want to give you a little précis. Understanding that if you suddenly change your mind about a circumstance or a situation, or in this case, it was an event and a person in the world, and I just suddenly was watching one thing and I realized, oh, that is completely the other way to what I felt. I didn't judge myself of like, how could I have thought this at the beginning? How silly. I realized it was a timing of getting the right information at the right time and then being fluid enough in my own being to feel the energy frequency of a shift in thinking and a shift in energy and say, I understand that differently now. Very empowering. And that was two things. One was where I had been almost defending an idea and a person, and I thought, oh, that is absolutely not what it was. Another person and a situation that I hadn't been able to quite get a grip on, and I had sort of left it there as, I don't know about that. I'm not sort of committing to either way with that, but not feeling a great sense of reverence for the situation. And then finding out more information, another layer of depth and understanding. And being in myself, this was my biggest key, being fluid enough to shift. And not that I was changing my perception, but I was opening to more information. And in the opening came a freedom from saying, I'm more than happy to shift a perspective and a belief if new information drops in and I understand something more. I don't need to hang on to things the way they are. And there was a really great freedom in that. So, not wanting to get into the details, and I'm not sure why I'm sharing that in that exact way, but I think I would like you to feel and to be left with the idea that when things change, and we talk about on an energetic level, so if you are going with that life cycle of the butterfly and you've got the pupae and eventually it's flight, when things change and shift, it's something about allowing in the ability to become, yeah, less rigid and more in the moment to discern truth. How do we discern truth? How do you discern truth? That can shift, that can change for you at different times. But it was a big freedom for me in understanding that truth had shifted. I felt really good about changing my mind, and I hadn't expected to. So I don't know if that helps you. All right, so that's what I want to kind of wrap up with. I started with this idea. I felt like it was like a capsule we've been building. I feel personally I've been noticing and witnessing in clients, my life, and myself a lot of preparation and refinement. And now it's another part where we have to allow and let go. And it might not even be for that long, it might be this period. But there's a point where you can do no more at this point. And don't even try and think about, all the stuff that I've got, what is it for? All of that great stuff that I've refined and I've organized and the project on the boil, how is it going to be? Even in an excitement energy, I'd still suggest you just take a breath, allow yourself to flow in the stream of your life. Feel into, as I said, is it shallow? Is it wide? What is it? Do a little visualization. Imagine it, feel the sound of the water. Go out and find some water. But use the water element coming up with the energy of the moon that's so potent, and really just feel into where am I at in my flow and how can I create more opportunities for myself to surrender and allow. That's my advice, surrendering and allowing at this point. And then when you find the point where you do that, is there a little extra allowing you can make, allowing a little bit extra surrender? It's like when you are sending prayers, either for earth or a client or a person, you know, that part where you're opening your heart in prayer and then you just open your heart that bit more and you just even send more light, even more, that little extra bit more. So I allow, I surrender. How can I allow and surrender even that little bit more? The game of trust. Oh, it's not a game, it's a path. So again, look for those signs because it's not even always helpful to share every sign that happens for you. That's why I say start taking little notes for yourself and then you look back and you smile. But what are the signs? How has the month been sort of dropping messages in for you? And where are some of your fixed energies starting to shift and be ready to dissolve? Where are you ready to let go of stuff? And there's twofold here. One thing is where you let go of the thing and it totally leaves. It never comes back. The situation, the person, the identity. It opens fresh energy for something new to come in. And the second part of letting go is about letting go so it can be transformed into a higher frequency of itself, a higher spiral of energy, and then it comes back to you refreshed and renewed. We're all in this together. It's a very big energy. Remember the importance of your soul path and your journey. Remember the importance of you encouraging you on the path and being an encourager for anyone around you, even one person. This is how we lift up. We keep lifting this energy of earth, even in the smallest ways. So flow with the moon. Allow dissolution to occur if it's occurring and see it as a gift. Feel your energy being not fixed, but mutable. Feel your boundaries sort of opening and softening and be ready to dissolve the fears and the things that no longer are there to possess you, especially when we come into karma and family line, and especially when you have a situation that's occurring that seems like same situation, different faces. This is the point where we come from living an experience into evolution. So you can choose to keep having that experience because there's always learning when it seems to be different faces, same situation. That is not wrong. That is always learning and movement for you as a soul. But sometimes you can lean into choosing evolution. And sometimes you say, I would even say to spirit, I have done this. I choose evolution. I choose love over fear. And evolution is a whole other thing. And that's where you are able to break down boundaries in whole other ways. And I'm not saying you won't get those times where you think, oh, is this that same thing? But then you'll view it with a different evolution eyes and you'll realize how far away you are from that original pain. And if you can do it for you in a moment, even a seemingly trivial thing, but that triggers you, then that has a huge effect for those who went before you, for current people in your family line, but those who went way before you, who could not heal, who were not able to heal the fear because it was very possibly the last experience they had in their human life before they died. Let it out of the body, let it out of the cells, let the fear out, go with the flow, embrace the water element, whatever that means for you. Pray for purification of the waters of earth, for purification of the waters, the emotional waters of all humanity. And celebrate yourself at the end of this month. So much has happened. Be in that energy, trust, and see if you can feel into the beauty of surrender and how not needing to know everything and not needing to be the one who's always in control doesn't have to be frightening. It could be relieving. Spirit is with you. You are never alone. Thank you for joining me, and I wish you so many blessings here at the end of this month. Namaste.